Welcome back! My name is Ballerscuba. This is Video Games Over Time. We are still in 1985. Today, we're going to talk about NFL Challenge. The story of NFL Challenge takes us to XOR Software. XOR Software is an American video game company. While NFL Challenge is not the first game released by XOR Software, it would be the one synonymous with the company. Unfortunately, not much else is known about XOR Software, nor is there a lot of information about the creation or background of NFL Challenge. NFL Challenge is an American football simulation game for 1 or 2 players. If you are unfamiliar with American football or the NFL, we covered it rather extensively in our previous video. In NFL Challenge, the player acts as the coach. Instead of actually participating in the plays, the players pick the offensive and defensive plays from a paper playbook, and the computer then simulates what happens on the field. The game uses pre-configured abilities for the players and the teams in order to give an accurate simulation. The user can create or edit their own team, changing the player's skills and ability ratings through a simple text edit of the roster files in question. The game uses real-world NFL teams, but the players are represented only by a number. This is because the game got the license from the NFL, but not the license from the NFL Players Association. The game is said to have been expensive, going for $99.95 upon release, over $280 in 2023. It also needs almost all of a computer's potential 256 kilobytes of RAM, meaning that most home computers could not run the game at the time. IBM computers were the only ones truly capable of playing the game when it was released. XOR Software released NFL Challenge for IBM computers in 1985. That is a brief backstory to NFL Challenge. With that told, it's time to play the game for ourselves. And here we are in the game. This is NFL Challenge. Now, before we get fully into the game, there's a few things I did want to talk about. The first thing is that we are not going to get to actually play the game today. We are going to talk about the teams, we're going to talk about some basic strategies, and we're going to try to set up the game, but we will not be actually playing the game until our next video. So if you're just interested in me playing the game, don't really want to hear about the teams or a lot of the other things that are kind of in the background of this game, the next video is what you are looking for. For those that have stayed, let's talk a little bit more in detail about a couple things. Number one, as you might have seen, this is the 1989 version of NFL Challenge. It's the only version that I can get to work. None of the other versions of the game that I've been able to find work. So we're going to play this version of the game. This version of the game does have a couple differences. We are going to mostly ignore those differences, but let's talk about what they are. Number one, it's got the 1989 season rosters. I believe the 1989 season rosters. It's either 88 or 89, but there is at least one team that I can see on this list here that actually changed its name, well, its city, between 1984 and 1989. We are going to ignore that. We're also going to ignore the fact that the rosters are going to be different. We are just going to play as if it was 1984, and we're just going to ignore player names kind of altogether. It does change a bit of how the game really simulates each team and things like that, but I think it is going to be better for us to just stick with 1984 as much as we can, even though what's on the screen will be 1989. I will say that in the 1989 version of the game, the players' names are there. They did add that later. They ended up getting the Players Association license and they were able to put the players in the game. But in the 1984 version, it was just the numbers. Now, I don't have the capabilities of really editing those to make it back to the 1984 thing, so we're just going to stick with this and kind of work with what we got. All right, so before we actually choose our teams, let's talk about the teams. Like I said before, we haven't really had a chance, if you've been following the series, we haven't had a chance to talk about the teams. So let's go ahead and talk about the teams. We are going to start at the bottom of the rankings in 1984 and work our way up. And I'll try to put in pictures and stuff along the way so you guys can see really what we're talking about. All right, so at the bottom is here, the Buffalo Bills. They are in the AFC East. We're just going to go very quickly. I'll say that before we get started. I'm basically going to talk about founding, name changes, how many championships, and then what they did in 1984. And then we're moving on. So we'll try to go through this relatively quickly. We start in the AFC East with the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills were founded in 1960. They were one of the original teams for the AFL. They did win 2 consecutive AFL championships before the AFL-NFL merger. The AFL-NFL merger, I'm considering like 1968 when that started, but most people consider it 1970 when it ended. The Bills, in 1984, they struggled. They only won 2 games and they lost 14. That was the worst record in the NFL. Next up, we do have the Houston Oilers. The Houston Oilers are in the AFC Central. They were founded in 1960 as well. They were also a founding team of the AFL. They actually won the first and second AFL championship. In 1984, though, they struggled. They only won 3 games and lost 13. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings. They play in the NFC Central. They were founded in 1960 as an NFL expansion team. They were always part of the NFL. Through 1984, they have not won a championship. The Vikings in 1984 had their worst season to date. They only won 3 games and lost 13. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts. They are in the AFC East here. They were founded in 1953, originally as the Baltimore Colts, but they were in the NFL. They moved to the AFC during the 1970 merger. Before the merger, the Baltimore Colts won 3 NFL championships, and they did win the Super Bowl in 1970. The team moved to Indianapolis in 1984. That year, the Colts won 4 games and lost 12. Next up, we have way down here in the NFC West, the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons, they were founded in 1965 as an NFL expansion team. Through 1984, they have not won a championship. In 1984, the Falcons won 4 games and lost 12. Next up, we do have the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions were founded in 1930 as the Portsmouth Spartans. That's Portsmouth, Ohio. And they joined the NFL that year. They relocated to Detroit in 1934 and renamed themselves the Detroit Lions. The Lions won 4 NFL championships before the merger, but have not won one since. In 1984, the Lions won 4 games, lost 11 games, and tied once. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns. They play in the AFC Central here. They were founded in 1944. The Browns joined the AAFC in 1946. Remember, that's one of the old ones. The Browns won all 4 AAFC championships before those 2 leagues merged in the 1949 season. After the 1949 season, AAFC and NFL merged. Then the Browns actually still were good. They won 4 championships before the NFL-AFL merger, but they have had mixed results since then. In 1984, the Browns won 5 games and lost 11. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were founded in 1976 as an NFL expansion team. Through 1984, they have not won any championships. In 1984, they won 6 games and lost 12. Next up, we have the NFC East Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles were founded in 1933 as part of the NFL. They won 3 NFL championships before the NFL-AFL merger. In 1984, they won 6 games, lost 9, and tied once. Next up, we have the New York Jets in the AFC East. They were founded in 1959 as the Titans of New York. They were a founding member of the AFL. The team's name would change in 1963 to the New York Jets. They won the Super Bowl in 1968. In 1984, they won 7 games and lost 9. Next up, we have the San Diego Chargers. They were founded in 1959 as the Los Angeles Chargers. They were a founding member of the AFL as well. They relocated to San Diego in 1961. They won 1 AFL championship before the merger, but nothing since. In 1984, they won 7 games and lost 9. I didn't mention, but they're in the AFC West. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints. They are somehow in the NFC West. NFC West is a weird one. The New Orleans Saints, they were founded in 1966 as an NFL expansion team. Through 1984, they have not won a championship. In 1984, they won 7 games and lost 9. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals were founded in 1967, part of the AFL. Through 1984, they have not won a championship. In 1984, they went even. They won 8 games and lost 8 games. We're starting to get to at least even teams now. Next up, we do have the... Where are they? There they are. AFC West, Kansas City Chiefs. They were founded in 1959 as the Dallas Texans. They were also a founding member of the original AFL. They moved and changed their name in 1963. The Chiefs won 2 AFL championships before the merger, and they did win the Super Bowl in 1969. In 1984, they won 8 games and lost 8 games. Next up, we do have, out of the NFC Central, the Green Bay Packers. They were founded back in 1919. They're actually older than the NFL. They would join what would become the NFL in 1921. The Packers won 9 NFL championships before the merger, and they have won 2 Super Bowls, one in 1966 and one in 1967. In 1984, the Packers won 8 games and lost 8 games. Next up, we have the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots were founded in 1959 as the Boston Patriots. They were another founder of the AFL. The team renamed themselves the New England Patriots in 1971. They didn't move, they just kind of renamed themselves. The Patriots have not won a championship by 1984. In 1984, the Patriots won 9 games and lost 7. Next up, we have the... Where are you guys? Up here. The Dallas Cowboys. They play in the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys were founded in 1960 as an NFL expansion team. They have won 2 Super Bowls, one in 1971 and one in 1977. In 1984, the Cowboys won 9 games and lost 7. So winning records, but none of the teams we've talked about have made the playoffs yet. We'll get there. Next up, we have the St. Louis Cardinals. I don't care what it says there. They're the St. Louis Cardinals. They were officially founded in 1960 when they joined the NFL. There were a couple other teams before them, but that's when they were officially founded, 1960. By 1984, the Cardinals had not won a championship. In 1984, the Cardinals won 9 games and lost 7. Next up, we have the New York Giants. They were founded in 1925 as an NFL team. They were officially known, and still are officially known, as the New York Football Giants, to not confuse it with the baseball team. The Giants won 4 NFL championships before the AFL merger. In 1984, the Giants won 9 games and lost 7, which earned themselves an NFC wildcard spot in the playoffs. The Giants won the wildcard game in the playoffs, but lost in the NFC divisional playoff game. Next up, we do have the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers were once again officially founded in 1933 as part of the NFL. They were known as the Pittsburgh Pirates back then. The Pirates changed their name to the Steelers in 1940. They won 4 Super Bowls. They won one in 1974, 1975, 1978, and 1979. In 1984, the Steelers won 9 games and lost 7. That won the AFC Central Division. They would win their divisional playoff game, but they lost in the AFC Championship game. Next up, we do have where are you? Hiding way over here. The Los Angeles Rams out of the NFC West. The Los Angeles Rams were founded in 1936, originally as the Cleveland Rams. They were an NFL team when they were founded. They relocated to Los Angeles in 1946. They won 2 NFL championships before the AFL merger. In 1984, the Rams won 10 games and lost 6, earning themselves an NFC wildcard slot. They lost the wildcard game in the playoffs. Next up, we do have the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears were founded in 1920 as the Decatur Staleys. Decatur Staleys, yes. They relocated to Chicago in 1921 and renamed themselves the Bears in 1922. The Bears won 8 NFL championships before the AFL merger. In 1984, the Bears won 10 games and lost 6, which won the NFC Central Division. They would win their divisional playoff game, but lost the NFC Championship game. Next up, we do have the Los Angeles Raiders out of the AFC West. They were founded in 1960, another founding team of the AFL. Originally, they were the Oakland Raiders. The team moved to Los Angeles in 1982. The Raiders won 1 AFL championship before the merger and then did win 3 Super Bowls, one in 1976, one in 1980, and one in 1983. In 1984, the Raiders won 11 games and lost 5, which earned them an AFC wildcard slot. They would lose the wildcard game in the playoffs, though. Next up, we have Washington. Washington was founded in 1932 as the Boston Braves. They were originally an NFL team. They renamed themselves in 1933 and then moved to Washington, D.C. in 1937. Washington won 2 NFL championships before the AFL merger, and then they did win a Super Bowl in 1982. In 1984, Washington won 11 games and lost 5, which won the NFC East division. They lost their divisional playoff game, though. Next up, we do have, out of the AFC West, the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks were founded in 1974 as an NFL expansion team. Through 1984, they had not won a championship. In 1984, the Seahawks won 12 games and lost 4, earning an AFC wildcard slot. They would win the wildcard game, but then lost in the divisional playoff game. Next up, we have the Denver Broncos, also out of the AFC West. The Denver Broncos were founded in 1960, a founding member of the AFL. Through 1984, the Broncos had not won a championship. In 1984, the Broncos won 13 games and lost 3, winning the AFC West division. They would lose their divisional playoff game, though. Only a couple more here. Next up, we have the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins were founded in 1965, originally part of the AFL. The Dolphins won 2 Super Bowls, one in 1972 and one in 1973. In 1984, the Dolphins won 14 games and lost 2. That would win the AFC East. They would win their divisional playoff game and the AFC Championship game, but lost in the Super Bowl. What team did win? Well, we only got one team left. Lastly, we have the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers were founded in 1944. They were a founding member of the AAFC. They would join the NFL when it merged after the 1949 season. Before 1984, the 49ers won 1 Super Bowl, which was in 1981. In 1984, the 49ers won 15 games and lost just 1. That won the NFC West division. They would win their divisional playoff game, the NFC Championship game, and won the Super Bowl. These are our Super Bowl champions. So, those are the teams. I know that took a while to kind of get through, but, I do want to give a bit of history about the team. We're not going to spoil anything about 1989, but what we are going to do is we are going to play as the Super Bowl teams, at least in 1984. So I'm going to be the Super Bowl champions, which would be the San Francisco 49ers, so we'll go ahead and select them. And then we'll talk more about the game once we're in there. Like I said, we have a lot to cover. We'll then have the visiting team be the Miami Dolphins. That's all I'm going to really say about that. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to be the human coach for the 49ers. I'm going to use the left keypad. It's what I've been practicing with. The controls in this game are funky. It's almost all F keys. It'll be like F1 through 10. Like it's not fun. But left keypad, and then the computer can play as the Dolphins. All right, so we're going to do a coin toss to start. They call tails. I get heads. Choose to kick or receive. I'm going to start by kicking. Not that it really matters, but there was a quote by the championship Raiders coach that once said, if you're in a real life situation and you have the team all hyped up and stuff, you want to be on defense first because the defense is better when they have that adrenaline. So we'll stick with that strategy. We'll go with a kick to start. And the game this is where every other version of the game fails on me. So let's hope that it works here. We'll press any key. We got the team disk in there. Sure. And the program disk is back. Yeah, you have to swap disks, and that's the part that I can't do because I don't have any physical disks for this. Okay, so now we're in the game. We're coaching as the 49ers. Once again, we're looking at the 1989 rosters in the game, but we're just pretending, I guess, that it's 1984. So once again, even though it's all 1, 2, 3, because I'm on the left side, it's F1, F2, and F3. We're not going to start the game like I said today. What I'm going to do is kind of look over the rosters, talk briefly about the playbook, and then we'll probably have to end it, and we can kind of pick up from there. Okay, so we're going to start with the opponent's roster. Let's take a look kind of briefly at the Dolphins here. Now, the Dolphins are, they're not the best team right now. Spoilers, but you're going to see the numbers. Our team is going to be a lot better than them because of the rosters being in 1989. But let's briefly kind of talk about who the Miami Dolphins were, at least back then. They had a really good team. They went 12-4 they went 14-2. They went 12-4 the prior year, but in 1984 they went 14-2, and that's mostly due to this guy right here, number 13, the quarterback. That's Dan Marino. Dan Marino is a name you'll probably want to know if you want to talk about about football. He's a very well-known quarterback. This is only his second year, but in his second year, he led the league and set records in the league with over 5,000 passing yards and 48 touchdowns. Keep in mind, there's only 16 games in the season, so it's a lot. So he became a Pro Bowler. Other Pro Bowlers that year, we could look, but I doubt they're going to be here. 2 wide receivers, Mark Duper, Mark Clayton. A guard, that's an offensive guard, Ed Newman. Center, Dwight Stevenson. The defensive tackle, Bob Baumhauer. Inside linebacker, AJ Dew. Let's go with Dewey. D-U-H-E. And then the punter, Reggie Roby. So like I said before, this is normally all you kind of would get. You would get these ratings. So you get the number, you get their position, you get their running rating, their receiving rating, their block rating, their pass rating, and their kick rating. If they're in the starting lineup, they will show up there. And then if they have kind of a starting position, a set like special teams position, that would be under that special teams there. So yeah, the controls here are bad, but I'm hitting F5 to go down. That's how this game works. So you can kind of look over some of the positions. We have tight end number 3, the quarterback, fullback. I don't know what RCB, I think that's right cornerback. Then we have the nickelback. That's what that 5 cents is. Strong safety, free safety, halfback, dime package, left cornerback, the outside linebackers there, the inside linebackers, the middle linebackers, they're basically the same. The guards, there's our offensive line there. Then we got the defensive line. He could be the nose tackle or right tackle. There's a right tackle, tight end, punt returner, FL. Oh, that's they have different names for the wide receivers. I believe that's the fly wide receiver, and then the slot receiver, I think, is SE, and then wide receiver number 3, tight end number 2, right end. Yeah, you can kind of see all that. I believe it's F2 to go up quickly. Yeah, all right. So those are basically the ratings there. And then, yeah, the main one right here, though, is this guy, Dan Marino. He's the one that we're going to try to stop because he is a good chunk of their offense. I believe it's F4. Yes, F4 will then show me their heights, weights, how many years in the NFL they had, and then their speed. Now, the speed is how fast they can run 40 yards. I've never really understood why specifically 40 yards, but that's the metric that people use. 40 yards, that's how fast in seconds they can run that. So the lower, the better, which is why you can see like the kicker here is not as fast. And then there we get the names. That's not what I wanted to see. There we go. The kicker is not as fast as like the quarterback and the defensive back and all them. Yeah, you want to be fast there. That's the goal. But like I said, in this version of the game, you do get people's names. Once again, the names are not relevant to us right now because they're not accurate to what we're pretending that this is. But there's only so much I can do. This is the 1989 Dolphins, I believe. I can actually look. I do have that roster in front of me. Is this 1989 or it could be 1988? Let me check here. Who's the names on this? Yeah, it's the 1989 team. Definitely the 1989 team. Okay, so that's all we really wanted to talk about there. Let's take a look quickly at the 49ers. They're our team. They should be good. We're going to not have people's names on there. You guys didn't see who number 8 was. That didn't happen. He's not important ever. Okay, so the 1984 San Francisco 49ers, once again, that's who we're pretending we're playing. They are led by, actually, it turns out the same guy. So both, at least the quarterbacks, are good here. That is number 16. That's Joe Montana. Joe Montana is just like Dan Marino, considered one of the best kind of all time. Like, he's really, really good. In 1984, he didn't set records the same way that Dan Marino did, but he's still a very good quarterback. He is, of course, a Pro Bowler. Other Pro Bowlers that year for the 49ers were the running back, which is nice to have a quarterback and a running back that both made the Pro Bowl. The running back's name is Wendell Tyler. Then we have the tackle, Keith Fahnhorst. The guard, Randy Cross. Center, Fred Quillen. Linebacker, Keena Turner. Cornerbacks, Eric Wright and Ronnie Lott. Strong safety, Carlton Williamson. And free safety, Dwight Hicks. So you might notice that we have more, right? We obviously have more on our team, but we also have a lot of defensive guys. We have the offensive line, and then kind of the linebackers and the defensive backs are really good for the 49ers. So we're going to try to use that to our advantage. I don't know if 1989 works that way, but that's how 1984 works for us. All right, so with that said, we're going to briefly go over the manual as well. I'll try to show a couple pictures here. I didn't really figure out a good way to just kind of squeeze the manual in, so we're just going to briefly talk about it here. Manual has a ton of information on it. They talk about a bit of backstory about the game. Apparently, Robert D. Krutz is the president and CEO of XOR Corporation. That's pretty much all I have about XOR Corporation. I really have like nothing about them. They go into extensive detail about how to play the game, all the different buttons, a little bit of strategy, how to change the rosters, how to basically play the game. They really had to go in detail about it. With that said, the important part for us is that it also came with a literal playbook. It's an actual book. If you're an NFL player, you're probably very familiar with it. It is an actual book full of plays, both on offense and defense, that you're going to need to memorize for your position in order to play the game well. They have it separated into groups. I don't like the groups, so I went ahead and rearranged everything for what I was going to do. But basically, try to put it as basic as possible. The offensive plays are grouped by formation, and they don't really name the formations. They just kind of talk about what each play does. As we play the game, I will show you pictures of the plays that I am calling. We're not going to talk about what the defense, or what my opponent is calling, I should say. I'm looking at offensive plays, but I won't always be on offense. We're going to show the plays that my opponent is calling. We're just going to show the plays that I'm calling. But the first one is group 1. They just call it white. I don't know. They call it labels. But in this one, there's 2 setbacks, and then there's 3 tight ends. This is what you want to do when you just need a short amount of yards, basically. So you have the fullback and the halfback, and then 3 tight ends and no wide receivers. So in this case, this is what you do if you really just need like 1 or 2 yards. And there's 5 plays for those that we'll try to go over. Next up, we have the blue plays. These are actually an I formation. They actually label those. So the I formation is a single tight end, 2 wide receivers, and then the fullback and the halfback lined up in a line behind the quarterback, directly behind you. These can be used for anything. This is a fairly standard offensive setup. Then we have group 3. Group 3, I don't really know what the name of this one is, but they just say all situations. And then the formation is a double wing with a lone setback and a second tight end. So you have 2 wide receivers on the outside, one running back behind you. It looks like for the most part it's a fullback that's going to be behind you, and then they have looks like a tight end, and then also it looks like a second tight end. Yeah, a second tight end there on the other side. So 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and 1 fullback in the back. Then we have group 4, that's red. And for this one, you have the fullback directly behind the quarterback, and then the halfback split out, and he's on the weak side, they say. What that means is that's the side without the tight end. There are 2 wide receivers and a tight end in this one as well. A lot of times what you want to do in this situation when you have the halfback behind is you want to hand it off to the halfback, let the fullback kind of block a path there. That's often the idea, but a lot of these can be passing plays and stuff like that. Last group, I believe. Yes, the last group for the offensive plays would be yellow. This one's known as the shotgun formation, and that's something that we should talk about. The shotgun formation, the quarterback is a few steps behind the center. So the center actually does have to throw the ball a bit to get to him. This one becomes more standard over time. In 1984, they're using it a little bit though. So the shotgun, they also have a slot. There's typically, looks like there's 3 wide receivers and then 1 or 2 running backs in the back, and then maybe a tight end. They kind of have different formations for this one. These are going to be normally your long passing plays, but you can also use this to trick the defense and run it instead. Group 6 technically exists as well, but these are offensive plays. We don't really have pictures for that one. It's basically, would you like to punt? Would you like to do a field goal? Would you like to have the QB down the ball? And that's when you want to kill time. Just the quarterback receives the snap and takes a knee. And so then the clock still goes and stuff like that. Or you can have the quarterback throw the ball away, which I will never do because I don't like that. But that's when you want to stop the clock. Next, and then we have kickoffs and 4th down plays. 4th down, you can punt or do a field goal, or you can go for it and select a different play. And then finally on defense, well, not finally, we'll have a little bit more to talk about, but on defense, you have the short plays. These are typically like your goal line plays. These are things that you want to do when you just, like, you can't let them get 1 or 2 yards. Like, you have to stop them right there. That's what those short plays are for. Then we have the 3-4 defense. The 3-4, as we talked about, 3 offensive linemen, 4 linebackers. There's going to be a lot of blitzes that come with a 3-4. You want to send somebody else to try to sack the quarterback, but they're not going to know from where. Then we have the 4-3 defense. Like we said, that is 4 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers. Once again, every once in a while you'll blitz with that one, but that one's more about containing and stopping a run sometimes. They both stop runs, but either way. Then we have the long defenses. These are going to be your nickel and dimes, basically, where you have more cornerbacks, but there is an all-out blitz one there as well. So those are the plays that come with the game. Like I said, we'll be showing those as we play. I'll be showing pictures of what I call, and I'll try to explain why I call it. What I'm going to do is turn on learn mode, and what learn mode does is allows me to take my time to pick the plays. If you want to turn learn mode off and go at the proper pace, you can do that as well. But what would happen normally is you would have to have this playbook in front of you in order to properly select the plays. I luckily do have that, but if you're playing with 2 players, there's only 1 book, I believe. Maybe there's 2. Maybe they have 1 for defense. It doesn't look like they do, though. It's possible, but yeah, maybe they do. They might have 2. 1 for offense, 1 for defense. it's hard to get a lot of good information about this one. So each player would need that. What would happen as you play the game is that you select a group of plays, and your opponent will see what group of plays you've selected, and then you can hit which button, which play you want, and then once both of you have been selected which play, then you'll both see what play each person is playing for that down. It's a simulation game, but it's pretty deep. And I'm looking forward to playing it. But like I said, we are going to take care of that next time. This has been Video Games Over Time. I've been Ballerscuba, and this is going to do it for NFL Challenge for now. I hope you laughed. I hope you learned. And I hope to see you next time when we actually get into the game. Thanks for watching.